Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this very special edition. And before we do anything, we'll probably join the Premier with that very important announcement.
9 of them are in hotel quarantine, so we are not concerned about that. And we have 1 community acquired case that is linked to one of the known clusters. So that is fantastic news. As I said yesterday, we are looking at 2 preconditions before we can lift the lockdown. Those 2 preconditions is that there needed to be no unlinked community transmission, and the second was high testing rates. Well, I can also thank Queenslanders because Queenslanders have come out in their thousands to be tested. Thank you, thank you, thank you. There have been 34,711 tests, another record. So that is good news for Queensland, and Easter is good to go. So, in further good news, after discussions with Dr Young and Police Commissioner and Deputy Police Commissioner, the lockdown will be lifted from 12 noon today. I understand a lot of families in the Greater Brisbane have made plans, and the last thing we want to see are accidents on our roads at 5 p.m. this afternoon into the evening. So, if you have plans, the lockdown is lifted from 12 noon today, and I encourage people to take care on the roads. Please be safe and enjoy your time away with family and friends. Now, in addition, there will be some restrictions that will remain in place for the rest of Queensland, for all of Queensland. And let me just take you through some of those, and Dr Young will go into some more detail. So for the next 2 weeks, from 12 noon today until Thursday the 15th of April, all Queenslanders will be required to carry a mask when they leave their home. We will also ask you to wear those masks in indoor spaces such as shopping centres and supermarkets, indoor workplaces, public transport. Anyone attending food or beverage establishments, so if you're out there going to a restaurant or cafe or a pub, you must be seated. We have to go back to the seating. This is really important that we are doing this for the next 2 weeks because we are not out of the woods yet. So the lockdown has been lifted in Greater Brisbane, but we're not out of the woods yet, so I'm asking Queenslanders, all Queenslanders, for the next 2 weeks, if we all do the right thing, we can get through this together. Gatherings at your home right across Queensland will be restricted to 30. Unfortunately, no dancing in public venues, and businesses, of course, can reopen, but it's that 1-2 square metre rule. Now, in terms of outdoor events, there are a lot of big events planned over Easter. They can still proceed if they have a COVID-safe plan in place. But if you are outdoors and you cannot socially distance, put a mask on. It's as simple as that. If you don't feel that you can socially distance and you're in a crowd, put a mask on. That is the safest we can do. Now, in further good news too, we've spoken to Dr Young about Easter church services. This is really important for many people across Queensland, and of course those services and the Easter Mass can go ahead. It will be 1 per 2 square metres, so most churches have that in place. But if it is, it can be 100% capacity if people are seated and have it ticketed, and the churches know how to do that. So that's further good news. I do want to just mention again that we now have total active cases in our hospitals is 82. The numbers from overseas in our hospitals is now 68. So that's return travellers coming back. And like I said, that is a real risk for us because I think we are the highest state in the nation at the moment with the most number of active cases in our hospitals that have returned travellers from overseas. So in light of that, I've written to the Prime Minister to ask for another further extension to the end of April in terms of reducing our capacity of return travellers. So I'm quite sure that the Prime Minister will give that due consideration. And in terms of vaccinations, we've done 7,596 vaccinations yesterday. Like I said, we give out our figures every day, and it'd be great to see the Commonwealth do exactly the same. Transparency here. And our total vaccinations now are at 79,534. So look, just before I hand over to Dr Young, once again, can I really thank Queenslanders? This has been phenomenal. It has been very stressful for everyone, and I just want to thank everyone who's been involved. Most importantly, you at home. People of this state have really stepped up, and people in Greater Brisbane have honestly listened to everything that we have asked of them, and I cannot be more proud than today to see the great efforts of everybody. Secondly, can I say to the businesses out there, I know that has been tough as well. These are tough decisions. These are not easy decisions. And don't think for one moment that I don't think of all of those consequences when we are doing this. But the consequences of not acting are far worse. And like I said, you only have to see what's happening around the world. I saw in France today, they're going back into a lockdown. Schools are being closed again. I think that's their fourth wave. There's a fourth wave happening in the US. We don't want to see that here. I don't want to see that here. The consequences would be diabolical. Now, in further good news too, I'm hearing that the Gold Coast Airport had a record day yesterday with since the number of people coming into the Gold Coast. I understand Cairns Airport is doing well as well. So look, we are expecting a very good Easter, and we welcome, we're lifting that Greater Brisbane as being a hotspot, and I'm asking all other leaders across the country to consider doing the same as well. But if you are coming to Queensland, you'll have to abide by these restrictions in terms of mask wearing, just as the same as everybody else. And really, when you think about it, it's a small thing to do, but it means that we can go out, support our businesses, support our tourism industry, and spend time with our loved ones, which is, you know, a really special time of the year. So look, I'll hand over to Dr Young, and then the Deputy Premier, our Deputy Commissioner, and then of course we're happy to take questions after that. Thank you.
So this is very encouraging news. We only had one community-acquired case overnight in Queensland, and that was the perfect case, if I could describe it as that. This was one of those participants in that party that happened at Byron Bay. So when the person came back to Queensland, they went into quarantine and they were tested on Monday night, and they were negative on Monday night. Then they were tested again Wednesday morning when they were positive. So they have been in quarantine during their infectious period, so are no risk at all. So definitely a linked case, but also that additional bonus that they were in quarantine. And that was our one community acquired case. And the reason I can be reasonably confident that we're managing these two outbreaks is the amount of testing. The amount of testing over the last 48 hours has been astronomical. Thank you to every single person who's come forward. I know it takes time. I know there are queues, so thank you for doing that. And because of that, we can be reasonably confident that we don't have other chains of transmission happening out there in the community. But for the next 14 days, we will need to continue that testing, so please keep coming forward if you have any symptoms at all, or if you've been to one of those 118 exposure sites that are up on our website. If you've been to one of those, please make sure you continue to come forward so we find the first case, and we can then manage it so quickly like we did with this second cluster. That nurse was fantastic. She was the first case. She came forward. We got on top of it really quickly due to her work and due to the work of Queenslanders. So now we can be talking about lifting those lockdown restrictions and going to a reduced level of restrictions. Now we have to, unfortunately, keep those restrictions that have been in place for the rest of Queensland in place for the next 14 days because we're not completely cleared yet. We think we can manage it with those restrictions and with the response that we've seen from Queenslanders, but it doesn't mean the outbreak's over. It just means that I don't believe we need the lockdown to manage this outbreak going forward. We can use those other restrictions and the response that Queenslanders have put in. So this is really, really important. So over the next 14 days, if everyone in Queensland can do the required processes, the required response, which is wearing masks, always indoors unless you're in your own home or you're at work and you can socially distance because you're in your own office or you're in an area where you can socially distance. Or of course, if you're in your own car and there's no one else other than your family in the car. So you do need to, but everyone knows brilliantly what to do. You need to use some common sense. So it's indoors unless you're in a situation by yourself or you're sitting down to eat or drink. Once you sit down to eat or drink, or you're under the age of 12, although I must admit I've seen a lot of kids out there wearing masks, which is great to see. They don't need to, but if they would like to and they can do it, then why not? It's a great thing to teach our kids going forward. So mask wearing is really important. Outdoors, it's great to see. I think everyone's got a mask on except us two. It's great to see everyone wearing masks outside. But if you're by yourself outside, you're at the beach, you don't need to. Of course, if you're strenuously exercising, you don't need to wear a mask. I don't want people to compromise their health by wearing a mask. That would be illogical. So strenuous exercising outdoors or indoors in a gym, for instance, you don't need to wear a mask. So please do use some common sense, which is what I've been seeing happening. So that's first, that's masks. Then secondly, please only have a maximum of 30 people in your own private residence because we know that's where transmission first happens. So if we do have a case, we know that that's where we'll see it transmit. We saw it with that party down at Byron Bay. Those 11 people, they were in an Airbnb, so a private residence, and now all of them, virtually all of them, have become infected. So we know that private residents are a risk. So maximum of 30 people in a private residence, and make sure you know who they are so that if you do have a case, we can come to you and contact trace all of those people very, very rapidly because we know this virus transmits rapidly in many cases. So that's really important. Then the other one is that we need to keep are most vulnerable safe. When the vaccine has not yet been rolled out for long enough to our aged care facilities, and we know to not enough of them. So that means aged care facilities, disability care facilities, our hospitals and our prisons need to, for the next fortnight, only have end-of-life visitors. They can't have other visitors, which I know is very, very difficult over this Easter period. So that's another concern, but we need to continue that going. Hopefully when we get all of those sites vaccinated in the future, we won't have to do that again. But we need to at the moment, protect our most vulnerable. Then the other thing, I know this is difficult for businesses, and I thank businesses very, very much for their support. Everyone needs to sit down in any hospitality venues, any venues indoors. They've got to sit down while they're eating and drinking. Take their mask off, of course, when they've sat down to eat and drink, but sit down. You can get up to go to the bar if you're in a pub to pick up your drink or your meal, but then go back to your seat. And that's important because we saw transmission of this virus in the restaurant in Byron Bay. So someone sitting at an adjacent table. So we need to know who's sitting where so we can work out who's highest risk and make sure we get hold of them very, very quickly. Then the other thing I ask of everyone is please make sure you do leave your contact details so we can really quickly get hold of people. Just double check, it's so easy to do. I've done it myself. Make sure that the mobile phone number you leave is accurate. It's so easy to get one digit wrong. Just double check when you put that information there, because the quicker we can get hold of people and contact trace, the quicker we can then immediately get out of whatever issue it is. So there's a lot of things there. They're really important to do, and if everyone does them, we'll get through this as quickly as we can. Then I'm leaving the most important to last, but you all know this one. That is, if you're sick, just stay home. Doesn't matter how mild your symptoms are, just stay home and enjoy your own home. And get yourself tested. That's critical. That is the most critical thing that will keep all Queenslanders safe. Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Premier and our Chief Medical Officer. That's great news for Queenslanders. The restrictions are being lifted at 12, being brought forward from 5 p.m. till 12. So it's a reward for your very good behavior. So that is wonderful. Well, in this segment, the morning edition, let's take a very quick look at. We were going to look at that, but when the Premier came on live, we thought that was more important. So right now, let's take a very quick look at the weather for today.
Good morning everyone. Weather forecast for the rest of today is maximum 25 degree. Brisbane area is partly cloudy with medium chances of showers, most likely from late this morning. Light winds becoming southeasterly 15 to 20 km per hour in the middle of the day and then becoming light in the evening. Fire danger is low to moderate. Sun protection is recommended till 3 p.m. and UV index is predicted to reach 9, that is very high. Till tomorrow, stay safe and enjoy the rest of.
And thank you very much for that update, Dilraj. And of course, as we know that this is the morning edition, and then from 10 a.m. the feature for today is the travel updates, and it is very important for everyone to find out what they can do, what they can't do under the current circumstances. So from 10 a.m. please join in with Tanvi Goyal with the travel updates for today. And of course, the news that you've just heard about Queensland coming out of restrictions is not a April Fool's Day joke. It is for real. Well, it is for real and it is happening. Well, right now, let's take a look at what happened yesterday and how did we come to this? Because there was a record number of testing. And it is that record number of testing and only one new case that has led the Premier to that much awaited decision today that the restrictions are being lifted, but not only lifted, being brought forward till 12 so that there's no congestion on the road. Otherwise, come 5 p.m., the roads would be chock-a-block. And of course, we know that over Easter, normally the fatality rate goes up. And this Easter, let's all try and do the right thing and keep our roads safe, our families safe, and everyone safe. So well done, Queenslanders. Well, what is happening with the cancellation of this function and event in Byron Bay? As we know, all those party goers at the dance night in Byron Bay. So what does it mean for other people? And of course, we know the Blues Festival that has been cancelled 2 years in a row.
Well, we heard on the news that it's cancelled, but we haven't heard anything from the Blues people yet.
Nothing officially, so you're just out of there.
Well, we finished our volunteering for the day, so we've still got our tickets, but we don't know.
We don't live too far away, so hopefully we get another opportunity next year.
Well, we got in there all right, but then they about set up and they said that it's been called off, we have to go, so try and find somewhere else, I suppose.
We just got links being emailed and texted through to us to let us know that it's all been cancelled. So as of yet, we're stall holders. We haven't been told by Blues Fest it's cancelled, but apparently it has.
So there you go, stall holders have not been told, but of course it's been cancelled, it's been in the news. Well, it is very hard for the organisers, second year in a row that's being cancelled. Now, what is happening with the vaccine rollout? Let's join our Health Minister, Craig Hunt, to get that update.
We have had a record day for vaccinations, 72,000 826 vaccinations in the 24 hours to midnight last night, so 72,826 vaccinations. That's showing that the national vaccination program is accelerating exactly as intended, in the manner that was intended, at the time it was intended, off the back of a very clear development, and that is the capacity to have sovereign domestic manufacturing with strong, stable supplies coming out of CSL and Seqirus. And so that is extremely important. That takes the national total now to 670,349 vaccinations. And so what we're seeing is very significant progress.
Well, it is a significant program, and what's happening with the federal government and the states, and everyone's battling for that vaccine. As the health minister says, that it has been a significant day, and they're very happy with that. Let's hear from the states.
Confronted with criticism, the New South Wales Health Minister fronted the media and unleashed.
I really find this very offensive. I mean, this is the first time you'll find that I've said anything negative publicly in 15 months, but I'm angry.
If you haven't done your job, own up to it. Lead. That's what we're saying to them. And when you've dropped the ball, put your hand up. And if you need help, we'll help.
In a newspaper report, states were criticised for their vaccine rollout. New South Wales was accused of administering only half of its doses, and the Health Minister believes the Commonwealth was the source.
Dumping figures into the media, which actually are quite misleading, is wholly inappropriate.
It's unfair to go out publicly and comment on the rollout when you literally only let the state know in the last 24 to 48 hours or delivered what those new doses are.
The state government says supply has been inconsistent, then some have arrived unexpectedly.
No problem with them giving us extra vaccine, as long as they then don't go publicly saying that we haven't put them out, because that just shows an ignorance about frontline delivery of services, and I think perhaps that's because the federal government doesn't deliver frontline services.
The federal government didn't want to weigh into the debate.
Not interested in people who want to play politics with vaccines and distribution and all of that sort of thing. I'll leave the politics to those who want to play politics. It's my job to get people vaccinated.
We have confidence in all of the states and territories, and they're all managing their programs as they best see fit.
But it was too late. Other states and territories were as angry as New South Wales.
An orchestrated attack by Morrison government ministers against the states and territories, and it really is quite outrageous.
If you don't know you're getting them, you can't plan to deliver them.
Tensions have been brewing between the states and the Commonwealth over vaccines for quite some time, but they've been largely contained behind closed doors to ensure confidence in the rollout wasn't eroded. Now, New South Wales says the federal government has deliberately undermined the process.
I'm normally a team player and don't engage in that. However, where public interest is concerned, I'll stick up for my state.
The Premier insists the rollout is tracking well. Ashley Raper, ABC News, Sydney.
Of course, there's that battle between the state and the federal, as the federal government is responsible for getting it out, and the administration of those doses are for each state. So all the states are saying that the federal government has fallen behind the ball, and when they've been way off the mark, what was set out, the target that was set and what was promised has not happened. Well, right now it's happy birthday to Royal Australian Air Force, celebrating 100th birthday. Isn't that wonderful?
Flying the flag for 100 years. It allows us to commemorate those that have served in blue. It also allows us to take time out to remember the 11,191 Australians who served in the Royal Australian Air Force and did not make it home.
It's a great day. It's very, very emotional for me.
Thousands of people gathered around Lake Burley Griffin, some even taking to the water. They were treated to a once-in-a-century air show in perfect flying conditions.
It was amazing, and I think it's one of those things where the big kids and the little kids thoroughly enjoyed it.
More than 60 aircraft, past and present, took part, including the Hudson, Second World War planes like the Spitfire and Silver Mustang, as well as stealth fighters. Culminating in a jaw-dropping performance by the Roulette's aerobatic team.
This is a very spectacular display. It comes only with people with experience and expertise. And as far as I am concerned, this is air power in high level.
The event was an opportunity for the Air Force to show the country what it's all about. On this day 100 years ago, the Australian Air Corps became the Australian Air Force, with King George V approving the use of the word royal in June 1921. But a lot has changed since then.
There's cultural changes that are happening everywhere, especially with getting a lot more women into STEM positions that we're having. We get to have a lot more flexibility between roles and ranks as well.
Here's to another 100 years. Isaac Naruzi, ABC News.
Well, wonderful, and not giving my age away, but for me, the Spitfires do it. Yeah, they were the great ones. In our days and times, we had those war comics, the Phantoms and in the likes of those, the 132 pager ones that used to come out, and all of them had the stories of the Spitfire, which we used to follow. Yes, they always do it for me. Well, right now, looking at many not-for-profit organizations, of course, we know that these days there have been so many consultations that have been happening online, and not-for-profit organizations are called upon, and many of the officials of not-for-profit organizations spend a considerable amount of time, with these consultations, but, they do come out and help a lot. This is a wonderful example of where not-for-profit people, coming out, helping with the disability. A good story.
The style and the colours, and I love it. And it's so beautiful.
Working in the fashion industry is Stephanie Trintran's dream. The 21-year-old from Western Sydney who lives with autism struggled to get training and work until she came to not-for-profit organisation Avenue.
The best thing working here are teamwork, learning new skills. I did some stock take where I had to sort all the sizes to see how many we had in stock.
Stephanie is one of more than 300 people with disability working for Avenue. Participants are funded through the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Avenue was established 12 years ago when the O'Reilly family saw their late son and brother Shane, who lived with cerebral palsy, struggle to get work.
He saw himself as leaving school, and like his older siblings, going out and working. But for our family, it was a real shock to discover when Shane got to the end of year 12 that society didn't see him in the same way.
Avenue now has more than 25 partners. One of them is fashion label Yevu. Founded by an Australian, Yevu is made in Ghana by women who also struggle to get work. Sold online, it's distributed worldwide by Avenue.
We really believe that everyone has a human right to have access to dignified work, because what that does is it can really transform that person in terms of their sense of self-confidence, their sense of value, their sense of purpose.
This program is unique because it sees people with disability choosing the work they do and earning real money.
What Avenue is really trying to redefine work in a way that includes everybody.
I like the sleeves. Providing much-needed jobs for people keen to work. Naz Campanella, ABC News.
And isn't that wonderful? Even people with disabilities, autism, are willing to work. So that's a very strong message that's going out to the community, that work is available for people who like to work. And good on you, Avenue, for providing that avenue to the disabled people. And that is a good use of NDIS. When we look at NDIS scheme, there have been many people have been fighting for that, and many people saying it's not being well used within, especially in the cold communities, in the multicultural sector. But if you look at this, is a perfect example of NDIS going to a proper use. And what a good story to end today's morning edition with. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know now, we have split. A split means we have split our special segments away from our updates and news segments. So, this is the morning edition at 10 a.m. The feature for today will be travel updates with Tanvi Goyal, and every day we have different ones. We might not have feature programs throughout the week on every day, but most of the days, we know for sure at the moment that Wednesdays are real estate update with Usha Chandra. Thursdays are, travel updates with Tanvi Goyal. Once a month, we'll have the migration kasafar, meaning, migration updates with Suman Dua. And of course, on the first Saturday of every month we will have Aapke Sehat, which means your health, by Indian Medical Association of Brisbane chapter. So, there's many things that are happening, and we'll have lots of one-on-one interviews. If they are news related and current affairs related, they will feature in this segment. Once again, it's been wonderful having your company. Always so good to see you. It's goodbye from this segment. We'll join you once again at 10 a.m. for the feature for today. Until that time, it's goodbye from me.